The galaxy had forgotten what it meant to face predators until the humans arrived. And even the ancient elves had to relearn the meaning of war. Aerindel stood at the edge of the obsidian cliff, her silver hair whipping in the wind as she watched the foreign vessel descend through Valathria's crimson sky. The ship moved with unsettling purpose, its hull scarred and battle-worn in ways that made her ancient heart quicken. Beside her, Zephyros and Aurelia, her twin dragons, growled low in their throats, their scales shimmering with protective fire. "Easy," she whispered, placing a hand on Zephyros's scaled neck. The warmth beneath her palm did little to calm her own. Unease, the Elven Council had debated for 3 cycles whether to allow this. Meeting, humans, the word itself carried weight. Across the known systems, species that had emerged from a death world so hostile that survival alone seemed impossible, yet they had not merely survived. They had thrived, expanded, and now stood among the galactic powers with a reputation that preceded them like a shadow. Aerindel had lived for 6 centuries. She had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, had seen species come and go like seasons. But never had she encountered humans. The stories spoke of their resilience, their stubborn refusal to yield, their capacity for both incredible compassion and terrifying violence. The Zitharan Empire had learned that lesson when they attempted to colonize a human border world. 3 fleets entered that system. None returned. The ship touched down in the valley below, its landing gear hissing as it settled into the violet grass. Aerindel descended the cliff path with practiced grace, her dragons flanking her like living shields. The council had chosen her as emissary, the dragon speaker, they called her. One of the few elves who still maintained the ancient bond with the great Wyrms. The ship's ramp lowered with a mechanical groan that seemed too crude for spacefaring technology. Arendel's expectations had been shaped by images from the data streams, hulking warriors in powered armor, weapons that could crack planets. What emerged instead made her pause. A woman stepped into Valathria's light, her dark hair pulled back in a practical braid, her build lean and athletic rather than imposing. She wore a simple flight suit marked with insignias Aerindel didn't recognize, and her eyes, brown and warm, swept the landscape with an expression that mixed wonder and caution. "Beautiful," the human said, her voice carrying across the distance. The hollows didn't do it justice. Aerindel approached slowly, studying the stranger. Behind the woman, 2 more humans emerged, a tall man with graying temples and a younger woman whose hand rested casually near a sidearm. But it was the first woman who held Arendel's attention. Something in her bearing that spoke of command without arrogance. "I am Aerindel of the Valathrian Enclave," she said in Galactic Common, her accent lilting with the musical quality of her native tongue. "You stand upon sacred ground." The human woman smiled, and it transformed her face entirely. "Captain Kara Bennett, United Earth Coalition. We received your council's invitation." She gestured to her companions. "This is Commander Victor Hayes and Lieutenant Natalie Chun. We come in peace, though I imagine you've heard that before." "From species who meant it, and species who did not," Aerindel replied. Zephyros shifted beside her, his massive head swinging toward the humans with predatory interest. "My companions are curious about you." Kara's eyes widened as she truly registered the dragons for the first time. "Those are actual dragons. Real ones. As real as you or I," Aerindel said. "They are not beasts of burden or weapons. They are partners, family. They choose us as much as we choose them." Something flickered across Kara's face, respect, perhaps, or recognition. "We have stories about dragons on Earth, old legends. I never thought I'd see one in the flesh." Aurelia made a sound that might have been amusement, a rumbling purr that vibrated through the ground. Aerindel felt the dragon's emotion through their bond. Curiosity tinged with approval, unusual. Aurelia rarely warmed to strangers. "Your council requested this meeting," Kara continued, her tone shifting to something more formal. They mentioned a threat, something that concerns both our peoples. Aerindel nodded, feeling the weight of what she was about to reveal. The Krevathi Swarm has awakened. They move through the outer reaches of this sector, consuming everything in their path. 6 worlds have gone dark in the past lunar cycle. The Council believes they will reach Valathria within 3 months. Victor stepped forward, his face grave. We've heard the reports. Biological hive mind, insatiable appetite, no interest in diplomacy. The kind of enemy that doesn't stop until everything in its path is dead or assimilated. Our defenses are strong, Aerindel said, hearing the uncertainty in her own words. But we are a peaceful people. We have not waged true war in 800 years, Kara finished quietly. We know, we've read your history. The admission hung in the air between them. Aerindel felt a chill despite the warmth of the suns. The humans had studied them, prepared, come knowing exactly what they would find, an ancient civilization grown soft in its prosperity. And yet you came, Aerindel said. Why? Kara met her gaze directly, and in those brown eyes, Aerindel saw something that made her breath catch. Not pity, not opportunism. Something harder to define, something that burned with quiet intensity. Because we remember what it's like to face extinction, Kara said. And because no one should have to face it alone. Before Aerindel could respond, a shrill alarm split the air, the warning system from the valley's orbital detection grid. Natalie's hand flew to her comm unit, her face draining of color as she listened to the incoming transmission. Captain, she said, her voice tight. We have a problem. Multiple contacts just roped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. Profile matches Krevathi bioships. Kara's expression hardened instantly, all traces of warmth replaced by cold calculation. How many? 17 confirmed. More emerging every second. Natalie looked up, her eyes wide. Ma'am, they weren't supposed to be here for months. They're here now, Kara cut her off. She turned to Aerindel, and the elf saw the transformation complete. This was no longer a diplomat, but a warrior. How fast can you evacuate your people? Aerindel felt Zephyros tense beneath her hand, felt Aurelia's sudden spike of alarm through their bond. The dragons had sensed it before any technology could. Something wrong in the fabric of space itself. Something hungry and vast and coming closer. Not fast enough, Aerindel whispered. Kara pulled a small device from her belt, speaking rapidly into it. Bennett to Valkyrie. Red alert. Wake everyone up and prep all defensive systems. We're about to have company. She looked at Aerindel, and despite the direness of the situation, her voice remained steady. Then we make a stand here. Your people and mine. Together. Through the crystalline sky of Valathria, the first dark shapes began to appear, organic and writhing, descending like a plague. The Krevathi vanguard struck the outer defense grid 17 minutes after detection. Aerindel watched from the command center beneath the Valathrian citadel as holographic displays showed the carnage unfolding in orbit. The automated weapon platforms, ancient elven technology that had defended their world for centuries, lit up the void with emerald fire. For a few precious moments, it seemed they might hold. Then the Krevathi bioships adapted, their organic hulls shifting and regenerating. And the platforms began to die one by one. They're learning our weapons, Counselor Theron said, his normally composed voice cracking. Just like the report said. Every shot we fire teaches them. Kara stood beside Aerindel, her eyes tracking the tactical display with frightening efficiency. Then we stopped being predictable. Aerindel, those dragons of yours, can they operate in vacuum? For short periods, Aerindel said, surprised by the question. They generate their own heat and can hold breath for nearly an hour. But they've never fought in space. They're about to learn. Kara turned to Victor. Get our pilots scrambled. Full loadout, mixed ordnance. Tell them to expect the enemy to adapt to every weapon after first use. We'll run out of different weapons, Victor said grimly. Then we get creative. Kara's fingers danced across her wrist console. Natalie, I need you coordinating with the Valathrian ground forces. Set up overlapping fields of fire around population centers. Nothing fancy, just good old-fashioned crossfire. Aerindel watched the human captain work, fascinated despite the terror clawing at her chest. In minutes, Kara had reorganized their entire defensive strategy, identifying weaknesses in the elven approach that centuries of peace had made invisible. The elves had built their defenses to repel raiders and pirates, not to face an enemy that treated their soldiers as disposable cells in a vast organism. The citadel can hold 10,000, Aerindel said. But there are 17 settlements across the continent. Nearly 1 million souls. Kara's jaw tightened. The Valkyrie can carry 5,000 in emergency conditions. That's not enough. No, Aerindel agreed quietly. It isn't. Through their bond, she felt Zephyros's impatience, his desire to rise and fight. Aurelia echoed the sentiment, both dragons sensing their companion's fear and responding with primal fury. They had been born in fire, had hunted the sky serpents of the northern ranges, had never known true fear. The concept of retreat was foreign to their nature. The first bioship breached the atmosphere. 31 minutes after arrival. It came down over the coastal city of Silvermere like a falling moon, its surface pulsing with bioluminescent veins. The city's shields flared brilliant blue, and for a heartbeat Aerindel dared to hope. Then the Krevathi ship began to change, its hull rippling as it extruded thousands of pod-like growths. The pods detached, falling toward the city like rain. Deployment pods, Victor said, his face ashen. Ground forces. Tens of thousands of them. Kara was already moving toward the exit. Victor, you have command here. Coordinate with the council. Natalie, you're with me. She paused at the doorway, looking back at Aerindel. I need those dragons. And I need you to trust me. Aerindel didn't hesitate. She ran. They emerged onto the Citadel's launch platform where the dragons waited, their scales reflecting the chaos in the sky above. Kara's dropship sat nearby, its engines already warming. Natalie sprinted aboard while Kara approached the dragons with cautious respect. I'm going to ask something insane, Kara said, looking up at Zephyros's massive head. And I need you both to understand, I've seen what humans can do when they're pushed to the edge. But I've never seen anything like you. If we're going to save this world, I need you to fight like you've never fought before. Zephyros lowered his head, bringing one enormous golden eye level with Kara. Aerindel felt the dragon's assessment through their bond measuring, judging, deciding. Then Zephyros exhaled, a sound like distant thunder, and Aerindel felt his acceptance. He agrees, Aerindel said, swinging onto Zephyros's back. But I don't understand. What can we do against such numbers? Kara's smile was fierce and terrible. You're about to find out what humans learned a long time ago when you can't win by being stronger. You win by being meaner. She activated her cum. All coalition forces, this is Bennett. New rules of engagement. We're going hunting. The flight to Silvermere took 8 minutes that felt like hours. Aerindel clung to Zephyros's neck as they streaked across the sky, Aurelia keeping pace beside them. Below, she could see the evacuation effort streams of civilians fleeing toward fortified positions. Their ancient world transformed into a battlefield. The Krevathi pods had already landed by the time they arrived. The creatures that emerged were nightmares given flesh chitinous things that moved on too many legs, with blade arms that gleamed wet and black. They swarmed through Silvermere's outer districts, and where they passed, nothing living remained. Kara's dropship descended into the chaos, its weapon systems painting the street with fire. The Krevathi turned toward this new threat, their movements eerily synchronized. That was when Aerindel understood they truly were one mind wearing countless bodies. "Zephyros," she whispered. "Dive." The dragon folded his wings and dropped like a meteor. Fire built in his throat, ancient and pure, hotter than any human weapon. He released it in a torrent that turned an entire street into glass. The Krevathi burned, their screams creating a sound like tearing metal, but more came. Always more. Aerindel lost track of time. There was only the rhythm of battle dive, burn, climb, repeat. Aurelia fought beside them, her silver scales stained with ichor. Below, she caught glimpses of Kara's forces, small groups of humans fighting with a precision that bordered on art. They used the terrain, the buildings, created kill zones and choke points. They fell back when pressed, advanced when opportunity arose, and always they protected the civilians. "Aerindel!" Kara's voice crackled over the unit Natalie had given her. "We're evacuating the city center. Can you give us 10 minutes? 10 minutes. An eternity in battle." Aerindel looked down at the seething mass of Krevathi, saw them adapting to the dragon's fire, their carapaces growing reflective, heat-resistant. Saw more pods landing. Saw the bioship above, preparing to deploy something larger. "We'll give you 20, Aerindel said, and meant it. What followed would be remembered in song later, when there was time for such things. The dragon speaker and her companions holding the line while humanity evacuated the innocent. Zephyros and Aurelia flying patterns that should have been impossible, their bond with Aerindel allowing them to move as one entity. The way they learned, adapted, matched the Krevathi's evolution with their own. But it wasn't enough. Aerindel saw the moment the tide turned, when the bioship above released its weapon. Not pods this time, but something massive, something that fell with terrible purpose toward the city's heart where the evacuation was still underway, where Kara's forces were still fighting, where thousands of her people huddled in terror. "No," Aerindel breathed. Then louder, "Zephyros." The dragon understood. They both did. There was only one way to stop what was falling: intercept it, destroy it in the air before it reached the ground. But to get close enough, to hit it hard enough, they would have to fly directly into its path. Aerindel felt Zephyros's acceptance, felt Aurelia's desperate surge of speed as her sister dragon realized what they intended. Through the she heard Kara screaming something, heard the human captain's voice break with understanding. But Aerindel was already committed, already diving upward, toward the falling mass of teeth and hunger and death. Fire built in Zephyros's throat, hotter than it had ever been. Burning with 6 centuries of elven magic and determination, that she glimpsed the evacuation ships rising from the city center. Saw Kara's dropship among them, saw the last of her people lifting toward safety. Worth it. She thought. Then, Zephyros unleashed everything he had. Aerindel woke to pain. She lay on cold metal, her body a constellation of injuries. Through the haze, she felt Zephyros's presence in her mind, wounded but alive, his fury tempered by relief. Aurelia's mental voice joined his, a harmony of draconic concern that anchored Aerindel to consciousness. "Easy," a familiar voice said. Kara's face swam into focus above her, backlit by harsh medical lighting. "You've got 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and burns on your arms. But you're alive. Somehow, impossibly, you're alive." Memory returned in fragments. The dive, the collision, Zephyros's fire meeting the Krevathi weapon in midair. The explosion. Being caught by something, multiple somethings as she fell. Looking up to see human fighters in powered armor, their suits' thrusters screaming as they arrested her descent. "You caught me," Aerindel whispered. "Barely." Kara helped her sit up carefully. "2 of my people have broken arms from the impact. They're calling it worth it." Her voice softened. "Silvermere is evacuated. 30,000 civilians made it out because of what you did." Aerindel looked around, realized she was aboard the Valkyrie. Through the medbay windows, she could see Valithria below, beautiful and burning. More bioships had arrived. The invasion was no longer vanguard, but flood. How long was I unconscious? 6 hours. The Krevathi have taken the southern continent. Kara's expression was grim. We're evacuating everyone we can, but Aerindel, there are too many of them. Even with our fleet, even with your dragons, we can't save everyone. The words hit like physical blows. 6 centuries of civilization, of art and music and accumulated wisdom, being devoured by mindless hunger. Aerindel felt tears track down her face, not caring that Kara saw her weakness. Then we've lost, she said. No. Kara's voice carried absolute conviction. We've lost this world. That's not the same thing. She pulled up a holographic display. Your council is arguing about surrender terms, about negotiating. They don't understand you can't negotiate with the Krevathi. But you can survive them. Aerindel looked at the tactical map, saw the evacuation efforts, the human ships working in concert with Valithrian vessels. Saw the numbers millions saved, but millions more still on the surface. Humanity has lost worlds before, Kara said quietly. Earth itself nearly died once, before we reached the stars. We learned something that day home isn't a place. Home is the people you save, the culture you preserve, the determination to rebuild. You're asking us to abandon everything. I'm asking you to survive, to remember, to come back stronger. Kara's hand found Aerindel's, squeezed gently. The Krevathi consume worlds, but they don't hold them. They move on, always hungry, always looking for the next meal. Give them a year, maybe 2, and Valithria will be dead rock. But rock can be reclaimed. Life can return. If the people survive. Through their bond, Aerindel felt Zephyros's agreement, felt his pragmatic acceptance of what must be done. Dragons understood survival, understood the long view. And Aurelia, young and fierce, already thought ahead to the day they would return with fire and fury. The council won't listen, Aerindel said. They'll think you're trying to steal our world. Then you convince them. Kara stood, offered her hand. You're the dragon speaker. You held the line when no one else could. They'll listen to you. Aerindel took the offered hand, let Kara help her stand despite the pain. Through the window, she watched another bioship descend, watched more of her world disappear beneath the swarm. Felt rage kindle in her chest, hot and human and entirely foreign to 6 centuries of elven philosophy. What happens after? She asked. After we evacuate, after we abandon our world, then what? Kara's smile was sharp as a blade. Then we show you what makes humanity dangerous. We show you how to fight like a species that's been fighting since we climbed down from the trees. We show you how to turn survival into victory. The council meeting was chaos. Elven voices raised in desperate argument, centuries of peaceful debate dissolving into panic. But when Aerindel entered, limping and bandaged with Kara at her side, silence fell. She told them the truth. Told them what surrender meant extinction, not slavery. Told them what survival meant exile, but hope. She spoke with the authority of someone who had faced the enemy and lived, who had seen what humans could do when death came calling. We are an old people, she said finally. We have forgotten how to fight because we never needed to remember. But humans never forgot. They offer us their strength, their knowledge, their ships. They offer us a future. She paused, meeting each counselor's eyes. I say we take it. The vote was close. But it passed. The evacuation took 3 more days. 3 days of fighting retreat, of desperate stands and calculated sacrifices. Humans and elves working side by side, learning each other's strengths. Aerindel flew patrol with Zephyros and Aurelia, protecting the evacuation ships, buying time with fire and fury. She saw humans do impossible things, hold positions that should have fallen. Save civilians at the cost of their own safety. Fight with a determination that bordered on insanity. She saw Natalie die holding the choke point, giving her squad time to evacuate a shelter of children. Saw Victor coordinate a defense that saved 50,000 elves while his own ship burned around him. Saw Kara everywhere at once, directing, inspiring, refusing to abandon anyone who could be saved. On the last day, Aerindel stood on the Valkyrie's observation deck with Kara, watching Valithria recede. The planet's beauty was marred now, vast sections dark with Krevathi infestation. But 800,000 elves had escaped. 800,000 survivors carrying their culture, their knowledge, their future. "Thank you," Aerindel said quietly, "for not giving up on us." Kara shook her head. "That's what you don't understand yet. We didn't save you out of charity. We saved you because that's what you do. You stand together. You fight for each other. You never, ever give up on people who are trying to survive." She smiled. "That's the human way. And now, it's going to be the elven way too." Through the window, Aerindel watched the fleet human and Valithrian ships together, heading for the Coalition's core worlds. Heading for sanctuary, for training, for preparation. The Krevathi had taken Valithria. But they had made a crucial mistake. They had left survivors. And those survivors had learned from humanity's deadliest lesson, that sometimes losing a battle meant winning something more important. The will to fight back, Zephyros rumbled in her mind, a promise of future fire. Aurelia echoed it, fierce and young and unbroken. And Aerindel felt something new kindle in her ancient heart, not just hope, but determination. Human determination. "When we return," she said, "when we reclaim our world, will you teach us? Everything you know about fighting, surviving, refusing to surrender?" Kara's hand found hers, squeezed gently. "We'll teach you. And you'll teach us about patience, about culture worth preserving, about bonds that transcend species." She looked at the dragons visible through the lower ports, magnificent even in defeat. "Together, we'll be something neither of us could be alone." Aerindel smiled, surprising herself. The future was uncertain. The path ahead would be hard. But standing beside Kara, feeling the solidarity of human and elf united against darkness, she believed for the first time since the Krevathi arrived, they would survive. They would rebuild. They would return. And the galaxy would learn what happened when humanity's deadliest warriors stood beside ancient elves and their dragons. Would learn that some alliances were forged in fire and became unbreakable. The Krevathi had been unprepared for what arrived at Valithria. They would be even less prepared for what was coming next. Subscribe for more epic sci-fi stories. Let the stars guide your next adventure.